So my name is Jordy Mitchell, and I'm working with you all. Peter was nice enough to call and ask me to engage with the school in both the admissions enrollment realm and the development fundraising realm. And actually today, while the language is primarily around admissions ambassadorship and the way it works for admissions and development, the parallels are almost identical. And I'll show you, there's actually a slide where I show you what those parallels are. So as I mentioned, I'm an independent school lifer. I was saying earlier that I helped the now merged with other organizations, it's now Prisma, but the Partnership for Excellence in Jewish Education was located in Boston, where I am, and they found me, I found them, and I helped them create their recruitment and retention conference that they did for many years, and helped them with the training. And I learned a lot from them in terms of market segmentation and some other things, and hopefully they learned a lot from me around data and some other things. And so I've coached probably 15 or so Jewish day schools around the country, a lot in Chicago, Seattle, California, Maryland, and it's just been a wonderful experience for me. While I am not Jewish, I spent a summer at a Jewish overnight camp when I was about probably 8 or 9. My mother was the camp nurse, my dad was the sailing counselor. It was owned by my father's college basketball coach, and I went as far as to sing a solo in Hebrew at Friday night services. I fell in love with lox and bagels, which I didn't know what it was before then. And then when I went to college, my sophomore year's suite mates were named Bloomfield, Sendar, and Cohen, and they made me what they called an honorary member of the tribe. So I still have the chai that they gave me. So I have deep appreciation for Jewish faith and culture, and have worked in many spiritual schools and really understand the advantage of having your family's personal and spiritual values reinforced all day, every day with your children. I think it's hard to put a value on that. You all clearly have weighed that as you've chosen this particular school. But for me, the schools with a spiritual component have such an advantage, especially in this day and age where values seem to have gone to hell in a handbasket, as my mother used to say, because the way we want our children to behave. I've been saying at my school, even though it's a secular school, our motto is honor, scholarship, and kindness. In this day and age, we're doubling down on kindness. But that's such a part of the fabric of this school and other schools like this that hopefully you all felt that, and that's one of the reasons that you're part of this community, in addition to the other very strong reasons to be here. So I will use that as a lead-in to why you're here. Is that the team here is obviously very passionate about this school, and I can tell you in a day and a half, as someone who's been on hundreds of school campuses, I wouldn't hesitate to send my children here. I see happy and engaged children. I love the vision of moving the school forward from an educational standpoint. So when you can find a school with a spiritual component that serves the spiritual side and also delivers a top-notch educational experience, you've really found a gem. And in the Jewish day school world, I've seen a lot of schools that do one or the other well, but not both. And my experience here already is that this school does both well. So now what we need is people like you, the authentic voice, the people who have chosen the school for their children, assuming you feel that way, and I'm guessing you do, or you might not be here this morning, to help spread that word. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the opportunities. We're going to brainstorm a little bit about what you would say about the school. Then I'm going to show you what the staff would say about the school. The real advantage is that you all are the authentic voice. Peter's very passionate about this place. Warren's very passionate about this place. We're paid spokespeople at the end of the day. Now, a lot of the people who work here are also parents, so they have that piece going for them. I'll show you some data in a minute about how important it is that the customer, it's a terrible word to use at a school, but it's the true one, the paying customer is the authentic voice, and you are the ones who other people will listen to. You are the ones who, just through organic conversation about your children's experience, can encourage people to just come look, right? So let's get started. Maybe. Come on. No, I don't want updates. There we go. So I'll let you read this. A good friend of mine, Harry Bloom, who's one of the people I worked with at Page, this is a quote from his that I think really covers what we're talking about today. So this is really the direction that schools have gone from a very, so this is my 28th year as an admission director. It's my 38th year working in independent schools. And there's a passive way to do admissions and enrollment and outreach. And by that I mean for many years, all we did in schools was we were events driven. And we would have an open house, we'd have parlor meetings, and we would ask, and we would put ads in the paper, or we would ask volunteers to put up the poster in Starbucks or in the library. And then the real big one was lawn signs. Woo-woo, right? We were being really high-tech there. And we considered that marketing. And the bottom line is that that's not really moving the needle. It's never really moved the needle. It's not how... It's actually not even how businesses other than schools do this. So what we want to do with help from people like you is move this from a passive process to an active process. So here's some of the advantages. Again, I know everybody in the room can read, so I won't read it to you, but I'll give you, I broke every rule of PowerPoint. There's way too much text there. But I also want this to then serve as a little bit of a workbook, so I will let you read this for a minute. I mentioned the term authentic voice already. Lauren, do you use parent tour guides at all in admissions?
We're not yet.
Okay.
We're playing around with the idea, trying to figure out how we can.
Okay. Let's chat about that. Mm-hmm. It's the first move I made at my current school at the lower levels, and my staff was mortified because admissions people love to give tours. And we just do, right? And we have the skill set of being able to talk and walk backwards at the same time. And so my staff was mortified that I was going to give control of this over to somebody other than the admissions person. What if they don't say the right thing? And it's the best thing we ever did for lots of reasons. One of which is we get to see you all on a regular basis. And you all are... One of the huge advantages we have when we see you on a regular basis is that you tell us what the buzz is. We're going to talk about buzz in a minute. So we love to see people in our office. It will free the admissions office up to do some other things. And by the way, I love the fact when parents are walking through school and they're seeing the magic that happens. You hear about it, you don't see it all that much. And it's magic. I don't have a better term for it, watching our children be educated and acquire these skills. But when you get to see that in action on a regular basis, it reminds you every time you do it that you made a good choice. It makes it that much easier for you when you're out in the world to talk about what you saw, to talk about what your children are doing, what you saw. I see happy and engaged. That's what I saw. And I tell families all the time when they walk into my office, if you walk through BB&N, name of my school, and you don't see happy and engaged students, you should run for the door. And any other school you don't see happy and engaged. Well, I certainly saw happy and engaged here, which was especially impressive since it was, what, the second to third last day of school. So the fact that they were happy and engaged. And by the way, I did have lunch with some students yesterday, and they just knocked my socks off. Their enthusiasm for the school, their ability to talk about what they liked and the project-based learning, and it was fabulous. All right, so this is from other offices who we convinced to move to a parent ambassador model, which can include, tour guide would just be one possible role. from my experience, nothing earth-shattering here, but when you're changing a paradigm at a school, this is nice information to have. So ambassadors, I've been in my career, I started out as a AP Computer Science Chemistry teacher at a boys' boarding school. That was 8 years of, Peter and I have shared those war stories. He was at a boys' boarding school. And I've been a director of development, so I've run that side of the house, and then I've been a director of admissions, and I've sort of flip-flopped because the processes are similar, the skill set's the same, it's about relationships. It's about being passionate about your school. So this is one of my favorite slides, and this might be jargon to you. How many of you worked with the development office here? Have you worked, anybody worked with the development office? Maybe helped raise some money, or ask people for money, or go over lists. And so these are the labels that we use in the development side. We're identifying prospects for gifts. Okay, I know there's a plan potentially to build a new building here, and you need help to do that, because tuition doesn't cover it. So talking to volunteers about who might have the capacity and the willingness, to make a gift in that purpose. So that's identifying prospects. And in the enrollment side, we call it lead generation. What families out there are ripe for considering a school like this one, because they aren't getting the Jewish values reinforced in school and they miss that, or the school where they currently are, their children are enrolled, aren't really meeting their needs in some way or another. Either they don't know my child because it's too big, or I don't like the social scene. There's many reasons why people would be open to considering a school like this one. So that would be lead generation. And then in the development world, cultivation means that we begin a relationship to move someone towards maybe making a gift. And in the admissions world, cultivate means we've met them, Lauren's met them, maybe a parent's given them a killer tour, and what we're trying to do now is move them towards enrollment. We want them to come to campus. Hopefully that means they apply, and then we want them to send their child here based on the people they've met and what they see. And then at the end of the day, in a development, stewardship means somebody's already given a gift, and now we have a relationship, and we're not going to just turn our back on them. Right? We're going to keep that relationship going, because that relationship might be meaningful enough that many donors will give again and again and again. Well, at a school like this, and any independent school, stewardship is retention. Right? You're keeping your children here for a reason. And that reason is you have a relationship with the professional faculty and staff, you have a relationship with the community that your children are a part of, and you like what you see, you like the progress your child's making, they're communicating well. That's all good stewardship, because we want you to send your children back here next year. And some schools really struggle with that. This school does a very good job of that, and the numbers bear that out. And by the way, enrollment and recruitment is fundraising. I often will put a value to this. What's an average tuition here? 15?
Yeah.
I'll make you all feel better.
Yeah, 16 actually.
16? 15 makes the math easier, Peter. It's not as easy as the math at my school in Boston. $50,000 a year for day school. And I say that to remind you how fortunate you are to have this quality education at a fraction of the price. I have 1,000 people in my school are paying $50,000 a year. But so you know, when we're talking about making a gift to a school that you like, you can ask somebody to give money, and that's awesome. Or you can convince somebody that this is a school they might want to have their child attend, and then they come and they start paying tuition. So again, without the tuition increase, which unfortunately is a part of running our businesses, if it's $15,000 a year and you've got 9 grades, so what's the math there? $135,000 maybe would be the gift that you've made to the school if a family that you've referred enrolls their child in kindergarten and stays all the way through. You can write a check for that amount if you like, but you know, most of us that's not in our comfort zone. So in many ways, you're just supporting a school in a way that's very meaningful. So what's the value? You help people learn about the school and why they should consider it for their children and their family from that authentic point of view. You're experiencing it, you're living it. You can help people feel good about their decision to choose the school. just by creating this community and continuing this community that already exists. And then sometimes there's misperceptions about schools. I heard a couple already since I've been here. Every school has them. And one of the things that I love about the ambassadors that we work with at our school is they come in and they say, you know, everybody's talking about the math program. Sound familiar? And this is what they're hearing and this is what they're saying. And we can then share with them the accurate information and ask them to spread that out, as well as do our own communication. So lots of roles for school-wide ambassadors: creating positive buzz in the community at large and the school community. Reduce negative buzz. I'm going to ask you all if you hear negative buzz. Share the accurate and factual information to reduce misperceptions. So, give you an example. The school where I work is, when I got there, most of the time when I met families, they said, so we hear this place is really this sink or swim academic grind. And I was and I actually think at one time it was. But by the time I'd gotten there, we'd gotten over that. But that was still the reputation. So we needed, that was a misperception that we spent years working on. And the best people to help us with that were the parents, who would then go back out into their neighborhoods or talk to the people at the school where their children had come from, or their churches, or their synagogues, or their mosques. And when the topic would come up, they'd say, wow, that's interesting. We're not experiencing that. So that's the best way for schools to change those misperceptions, is through you all out in the community. What you can do to help admissions: you can invite families to events on campus, host receptions. I've heard you've got some people that host some good receptions. Help with events, so if there's open houses, having parent volunteers. When we do have an open house at our school, and we've got so many parents who want to be there because they love the school, and that's the number one impression that our visiting families get, is look at all these parents and students here. They must really love their school. And that sends a very strong message right up front. There's roles to make follow-up phone calls. One of the things I want to acknowledge is we're all busy, and our children keep us busy, and our work lives keep us busy, but there are ways that this can be carved out so that anybody who wants to help can do something. It can be a one-day thing. It can be, gee, would you email or call these folks in your spare time? So I really think everybody who wants to help, we can carve it out so that they can help. Other thoughts on how ambassadors could help admissions? Lauren or anybody else in the room? I know you've done admissions. Does anybody have anything to add to that? We're going to get to that. There's a lot more items. Here's a big one. Right, this is the big one. This is the shift from passive to active. Right? I've never had a family when I came to them and said, we love your family and we want more families like you at our school. Will you help? Never had a family say no to that. How can you say no to that? And so then what we say is, well, who do you know? Who do you talk with? Who's in your different social networks? Who have children the age that could come to this school who you think would be good adds to our community? And would you ask for their permission to give their name to Lauren, or have them call or bring information back to them, right? Imagine how much better that is than someone seeing a Facebook post, right? You know them already. You've spoken authentically about your experience here. And if you get permission to give their name or ask them to call or bring them to campus personally, that is a high quality inquiry. Much better than somebody who sees an ad in a paper. And if we did the math, so 1, 2, I'm going to count everybody in the room, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, let's round it up to 10, right? If there were 10 people in the room and everyone gave Lauren 5 names of families who fit, 50 inquiries. Lauren, do you know offhand what an average number of inquiries is in a year? I know I'm putting you on the spot. Or you might know. How much?
200.
So if 10 people in the room gave her 5 inquiries,
That'd be very helpful.
imagine, is that a 25% increase?
Yeah.
And that's 10 people.
Yeah.
Imagine if we got 30 people to do that. Right. People who are coming because you all have had a good experience, are speaking with them with passion and knowledge about your experience. These people will be really interested. So the power of the numbers and the power of giving names, and some people say, well, that feels weird. Why would I do that, right? But the fact of the matter is, I loved where I sent my children to school, and I had no problem saying to other parents, you might want to look at it. We're having a great experience. Just look. Can't hurt. You might love what you see, you might not, but we're having such a good experience. My kids love school, and if your kids aren't loving school right now, put it on your list. It's a pretty easy thing to do. I just think that we're always giving people the opportunity to consider an educational option for their children that might be better than where they are now. Market segment leaders will talk about more internally than this group. So WOMs, word of mouth marketers, and that's really what we've been talking about, and I just want to share with you some statistics about why this is so powerful. All right, 43% of consumers are more likely to buy a new product when learning about it on social media. 85% of fans of brands on Facebook recommend brands to others. And this is a brand, by the way. 77% of consumers are more likely to buy a new product when learning about it from friends or family. 77%. How many of you have gone out to buy a new car, refrigerator, washing machine without going online and reading reviews or talking to somebody you know who already drives that car? I wouldn't. 81% of US online consumers' purchase decisions are influenced by their friends' social media posts. 49% of US consumers say friends and family are their top sources of brand. So this is from the National Association of Independent Schools, and when I talk about moving from a passive process to an active process, 79% of parents use friends, families, and neighbors as sources of information when they're considering schools. 79%. Advertisement or mail, 20%. Right, that's the passive. We used to think that was active, but that's the shotgun approach. Let's throw it out there and hope somebody sees it and responds positively. So these are all the reasons why you all are so important if you can help out. So how does this work? Social media. How many of you have liked things on the Pardes Facebook page? Really easy to do, right? How many of you get home every night and maybe watch a little TV? None? Wow. I was going to say, I'm a slacker. Going to the Facebook page and simply hitting like, then shares that with your social networks. It is probably the least amount of time necessary, or comment, or something like that. So this is a really easy way for everybody to spread the word. So you can like and share events, stories, anything that's on a Facebook page, visually branded clothing, bumper stickers on the car. You have such a cool logo, I mentioned that earlier, that I would imagine that's easily recognizable. Swag, as we call it. Topic of education comes up a lot. Whenever it comes up, talk about your experience, your positive experience. And also be sure that if you're hearing negative things either internally or out there in the community, make sure you share it with the people here at school who can either, if it's based in fact, do something about it. And that's a gift to us, by the way. It's a gift because we try to know what's going on, but don't always. Or, what you're hearing in the community. Oh, anybody can get into Pardes. Well, not true. But the folks here can give you the talking points to address those kinds of misperceptions out of the community when you hear things like that. So where can you do this? We've talked about some of the places already. Where can you do this? Where are your social networks? That's a question, not a rhetorical one. Where are your social networks?
Soccer games.
Sidelines of a soccer game.
The dance studio.
Dance studio, perfect. Where else? Where are the office?
The synagogue.
Synagogue.
The J.
Right.
Not the J. JCC.
JCC, if your children go to Jewish summer camps. These are the places that, when you think at work, right? For those of us who work. So this was put together by a friend of mine who was really turned around a school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And he had a generative conversation with his parent ambassadors. That's a little small to read, but everyone will have this. After school and weekend sports leagues, these are the major ones. Of course, they listed all the sports, including things like karate and kung fu, swimming, tennis, after school and creative programs, art programs and day camps, ballet and dance classes, thank you, drama classes, musical instrument lessons, singing lessons, church, synagogue, community service opportunities, board work if you work on other boards, your work environment, country club, athletic club, sports-specific club. The opportunities, our social networks are much broader than we think normally until we're intentional about, oh yeah, yoga class, I like that one. Very namaste. So those are all of the opportunities that we have. And I would add carpooling, cocktail parties. Right? There's so many places where, how many of you would rather not talk about your children? Right? Most of the time, right? I've 3 myself. We love to talk about our children. So it's not like it's weird, right? You're sitting around with your friends and what are you talking about? You're talking about your children, your challenges, the joys, how they drive us crazy, right? Would we do it again? But we're always talking about our children. So this is not hard to work this into a conversation. Negative word of mouth. What negative word of mouth have you all heard, either internally or externally, about this school? Have you heard any negatives at all? You can share. Start, Peter.
Where?
Where?
You know, we fight this all the time, all schools do.
Yes.
You know, lower school is less rigorous than middle school, or less substantive than middle school.
Okay. Thank God. Young children should love them. By the way, I hear the same thing at my school. So much so that I make sure that the faculty knows where the graduates going to the best colleges, how many of them were lifers, because it's a pretty impressive group. And I keep reminding even our own faculty sometimes, and our alums and our parents, that if our lifers college placement is probably better, or at least as good as those people who joined us later on. So the program that we have the opportunity to create and build on from the beginning is being successful. For parents in my office, I remind them this is a marathon, not a sprint. And that being in a school for many years where the curriculum can grow on what's come before, at the end of the day, it's the outcome, right? It's where they go, are they successful? Young children shouldn't have the nose to the grindstone. So that's one. What else have you all hearing? Don't be shy, safe space. Yes?
I have friends who have kids in other private schools that are not religious, and I think, you know, I've heard them say that because we're a religious school, that they would be sacrificing the strength of the secular education, and because we're taking time to teach them Hebrew and Jewish studies, that they're, you know, missing out on academics that they're getting at the school that they're at.
Right. That's very, very common. Before I weigh in on that, does anybody who's here want to weigh in on that?
Well, yeah.
That was a rhetorical question for Peter.
I mean, it is something that since I walked in, we hear, and it's a convenient narrative for people who don't understand, and so our responsibility is to engage and to show them the value